We can get started if everybody's ready. First off, just wanted to thank everybody for coming out today, even on this especially snowy day. My name is David Brown. I'm the office manager of the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs, and I've been with VCU for 15 years and in the OMS office for about 5. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm going to let the other subcommittee members introduce themselves, and then we'll have the guests introduce themselves after that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chaston Smith. I'm a second-year PhD student in the Integrative Life Sciences program. My pronouns, are she, her.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dante Sharp. My pronouns are he, him, his. I serve as the coordinator for leadership and student organizations here at VCU, and I've been with VCU for 8 years.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Dr. Chad Sims. I'm a senior staff clinician at University Counseling Services here at VCU. I've been here going on 7 months. Use he, him, his pronouns. Glad you all could come out and join us this evening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah J. I am one of the guest speakers for the evening. And so, yeah, some of the work that I've done in the community, I currently work for a healthcare clinic where we serve different communities like undocumented persons, trans communities, and communities that use substances.
Peace and blessings, everybody. My name is Jerome Huggins Jr. I'm an alum of Virginia Union University, right up the street, and I'm also an alum of Clark Atlanta University. I am currently an assistant dean in New York City Charter School System, and I'm happy to be here.
Also, everyone, sorry, my pronouns are she, her, hers. Thank you.
Thank you for those introductions. So I'm going to be the MC for this event. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First question, how would you all define the Black radical tradition, and what does this tradition mean to you?
Anybody could go? Doesn't matter. Okay, I'll just go. Well, first and foremost, I would like to shout out some of my favorite radical leaders, Robert F. Williams, Malcolm X, the Deacons for Defense, Marcus Garvey, Harriet Tubman, and my personal favorite, Khalid Muhammad. So we should define what radicalism is and what Black radicalism is. Radical from the Webster's dictionary definition is the beliefs or actions of people who advocate thorough or complete political and social reform. I'd also like to highlight a definition I looked up, right? It's the medical definition of radical, which states that radicalism is designed to remove the root of a disease or all disease and potentially diseased tissue. So to bring this back to what Black radical tradition is, when you hear the political and medical definition of radical or radicalism, Black radicalism is designed to remove the root of a disease or potentially diseased tissue. What is that disease? The disease is systematic oppression. And the root of that disease is white supremacy. This disgusting, infectious, constricting, and terminal ideology has been the central figure for Africans' oppression for centuries. And the only way to remove the root of this disease is through Black radicalism. Black radical tradition has been well documented from Queen Nzinga of modern day Angola, to Yagna in Mexico, to Zumbi of Brazil, to Jean-Jacques Dessalines of Haiti, Nat Turner of Virginia, and once again, Dr. Khalid Muhammad in the US. The Black radical tradition represents bravery, fearlessness, combativeness, intellectualism, and a warrior spirit that disrupts the spread of this disease. So we have to continue to fight against conservatism, continue to fight against neoliberalism, and continue to unapologetically shake the table and make those who choose to sit at such table uncomfortable. We shall continue to fight for equality, but we will continue we shall continue to not fight for inequality, but we should be continuing to fight for Black power and Black liberation. That'll be all. Thank you.
Wow, that was great. Mr. Huggins, you explained that perfectly. What the Black radical tradition means to me, honestly, to put it in layman's terms, it just really just means keeping my Blackness alive, right? Keeping my Black womanhood alive. Through my upbringing, through the stories I've been told, through my own personal traditions, just keeping me alive, keeping my fellow Black sisters alive, keeping my fellow Black trans sisters alive, knowing the history, teaching the history to others, you know, and when I have my own children, of course, passing it down to them. So that's what it really means to me, just keeping my Blackness alive, right? So yeah. But that was great, Mr. Huggins. The definition part, you got.
I appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you, sister. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all. So now I want you all to go more in depth about the work that you have done specifically, and then tell us, do you think that the work that you've done is radical? If so, why? If not, why?
I think me being me is just radical. I've always been someone who has been outspoken, even in high school, right? Especially throughout college. I went to James Madison University. I got a degree in social justice, or justice studies, but basically social justice. And, you know, being at a PWI, which is a predominantly white institute, there was majority white people in my class. And so even within my major, right, there was activism. I had to speak out. I had to, okay, go Dukes. I had to speak out. I had to, you know, call people out. You know, there would be times where white people would be upset with me or would call me crazy or would start crying in class because I would speak up. So, you know, I feel like me being me is radical in itself. However, I did start to do more of the, what's the word? Like I started to volunteer with different organizations, right? So I started like doing more educational work in terms of like, okay, like what does this mean? Like, yes, I'm learning in school, but let me go out and apply it. And, you know, because you can't learn everything in school. So I did internships for reproductive justice. I did internships in the political field for the Democratic Party. My senior year of college at JMU, there was a class called Black Lives Matter class. And that was the first class of its kind on campus, and it caused an uproar. Like we was on Fox News, and y'all know how Fox News be. They was like, oh my God, this is terrible, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, we had threats against us. Like it was a lot. And, you know, I was super excited about the class because, like I said, we had never had this class before. And so what we ended up doing was we ended up putting posters in our libraries on campus that talked about like the myths and the facts of Black Lives Matter. Because at that time, there were so many misconceptions about what is Black Lives Matter, right? What does it mean? And then you had the whole Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. And so it was a big deal for us to create those posters and put those posters in the libraries for that, you know, so everyone could see. But long story short, I just felt like I've always been radical in school. I think that's where it started, questioning, you know, what I've been taught, right? Questioning, you know, why does it have to be this way? Why can't it be that way? And then going to college and being in my major really opened up my eyes as well. And then, of course, after I graduated, I continued on the work and working with survivors of sexual and domestic violence. We just recently did a Black Women Matter March this past summer. So I've always been radical, y'all, so I can't really, that's it.
Mr. Huggins, before you go, Sarah, can you talk a little bit more in depth about the march? And so also for Mr. Huggins, if you bring up anything that you do go into it, let us know, because everyone here doesn't know what you have done.
Right, so this past summer, we know that if you are in Richmond, we know that there were plenty of protests. And what caused me to go to one of my dear friends, Ashley Short, and say, we need to do a march for Black women, was that I kept seeing in the media Black women being brutalized. Like there were instances of Black women being hit in the face with skateboards. There were instances where like men would throw, there was like an instance where two men threw a Black woman into a dumpster and they were actually wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts, which right, plays into how when we say, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement, when we say things like it caters towards men, it does. So this summer really showed me how, you know, Black women are just constantly left out of the movement, left out of, it's hard to explain. It's like we are just so ignored, unprotected. And I just got tired of it. And then on top of that, there were way too many Black trans women dying. I was seeing on social media a Black trans woman dying every other day, being shot in the head. There was a Black trans woman who was cut up in pieces, right? Another Black trans woman found in the river. It was too many. It was too much going on where, you know, I just felt like I had to do something. And so I contacted my people and we planned a march. And the march was called Black Women Matter, #SayHerName. Because we needed to bring attention to all the women who were dying because it felt like no one else was. So that's what happened last year.
Thank you.
All right. That was lovely, Sister Johnson. That was lovely. So how do I start? Well, I'll start by, because I looked in and I see my father down there. And the reason, he's a huge reason of why I am who I am today. My dad, Gerald Sr., love you, Pops. I was always very aware due to my upbringing. My grandmother, who you rarely hear about people, elders that talk about fighting against integration. Like my grandmother fought against integration. I have family members on my mom's side that were part of the Black Panthers. I have family members on my mom's side as well, and my dad's side who fought in the war. One was the Tuskegee Airmen. And you hear about their stories of when they came home, what they had to deal with after fighting for a country that didn't fight for them. I grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn during the 90s and the 2000s. It's like the blackest place I've ever seen in my life. You know, in comparison to me moving back home, now it's a little gentrified, but you know how that goes. But I was very well versed, and I saw things. You know, when you grow up in Bed-Stuy, you see things. When you grow up in certain neighborhoods, you see things and you adapt. But luckily, I was blessed to have a two-parent household inside. But you know, outside of still the realities of growing up in the neighborhood. You know, and it molded me. I went to the Boys and Girls High School, which is a very well-renowned high school. It was like the center for like Black consciousness and Black activism in Bed-Stuy for a long period of time. As I got older and I got to college, I started reading more. Because, you know, it's always good to hear from my father, hear from my other family members, hear from other mentors, but reading it and applying it and critiquing it myself really heightened my consciousness, heightened my radicalism. And I was always very well spoken. You know, but my dad sometimes tell me, everybody don't gotta know what you think, but I didn't listen all the time. I used to tell everybody what I thought, and that got me into trouble sometimes. But you live and you learn. You know, you progress as you get older. You know, try not to make the same mistake twice. I was an athlete, so I always looked up to athletes that, you know, were also revolutionary. So I always want to give a shout out to Muhammad Ali, you know, one of the greatest men that I've studied. And I want to give a huge shout out to Craig Hodges. Craig Hodges is a guy that gets forgotten when it comes to activism. You know, before there was a Rauf, before there was a Colin Kaepernick, there was a Craig Hodges. And for those who don't know, Craig Hodges, with a kente cloth, with a kente suit on, went up to the White House and gave, I think it was Reagan at the time, he gave him an envelope with a letter saying, yo, these are the demands for Black America. Now, I know we've seen something similar to that happen this past election too. So, you know, it's interesting how history repeats itself. So there's that part of it, being an athlete and being a conscious athlete. And then I had a teacher, Dr. Akasi. She taught at BC, she taught at Union, she taught at Morgan State, and she also taught at Bowie State. She taught everywhere. My freshman year of college, It was 2012, the spring of 2012. And, you know, she sparked my consciousness. And I could get emotional talking about her because she was just one of the dopest human beings I ever met in my life. She helped me become an organizer because I had a lot of thoughts, you know, I had a lot of ideas, but I couldn't really put it in motion. And then as time went on, you know, I started being a little more outspoken and people started coming to me, you know, to ask about certain things or to do certain things. So I knew I had a responsibility. So I had to be on my P's and Q's. You know, I couldn't slack. So I would I was part of NAACP at on the Union's campus. I also pledged Omega Psi Phi, and within Omega Psi Phi, I would like to say that I'm more of the more radical thinking brothers of Omega. I made some controversial statements about making the D9, which is the NPHC, Black again, due to the amount of non-Black members that have been a part of our organizations for the past 100 years. So, you know, like radical, saying what's on your mind and just being very unapologetic about it. Then it had to be more than that though, because, you know, social media is fine. You know, talking about it on social media is fine. Going viral is a blessing and a curse. I don't really like it, but I knew I had to do more. So last year, after I had a moment of clarity, you know, my mom passed away in 2012. So she came back to me in a dream. And I knew that it was time for me to make the next step. So I went to Maryland, sat by her gravesite, and just jotted down what I want to see out of my own organization. So, you know, with the help of some of my founding members, we got a name going. So that's why I wore the sweater. It's called Divine Action Incorporated. And I got our principles down, our message, colors, everything, what we want to do. It was started by 6 Divine 9 members that also feel the same way as me, want to bring more radical changes to our neighborhoods, because we felt that, you know, our respective organizations would pretty much had a template for the things they would say when it comes to social unrest, and it just wasn't enough. So with that, we've had a lot of marches. We raised money for different funds. We had back to school drives. And during the summer, we were able to get 50 Black women that concealed carry permits through donations and sponsorships. We also were able to give self-defense keychains. We were able to help assist, give the homeless hats, scarves, some coats, socks. We did that in the city of Trenton, New Jersey, Brooklyn, New York, Sacramento, California, and we did Atlanta as well, and we did Richmond, Virginia. So my big thing with my radicalism is more about I know my lane, and my lane I like history, and my lane I also am big on self-defense. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe you deserve to defend yourself, but you also have to be smart. Because there are a lot of people out here that will just send you out there into the fire without a plan. And sometimes you have to be a little bit more calculated than just going off emotion. And that's what I was for the most part. Before I started my organization, I was just pure emotion. I was angry. I didn't like the system. I bucked the system. It caused me a lot of riff at jobs. So, you know, I got let go of a few jobs, you know, it happens. But once you mature and you start to find out, like, you know, your radicalism can be more beneficial if you just take a step back and just think for a second. So all in all, that's my background with my organizing and my organization. We're still doing work. We just got approved for some grants, and we're about to start a summer school program. We're collaborating with a preschool out here in Brooklyn, New York. And we're also working on doing something a little more internationally. So stay tuned for that, of course. We can always talk about that offline. But once again, just want to say thank you for being here. And I love that y'all allowed me to share my story. So much love. Thank you.
Thank y'all both for sharing that. So the reason I asked you to go in depth about the work that you have done is because I want to know how has the work that you've done and the way you choose to proceed with your work and carrying out your mission, how has that been shaped by the past and what has already been done by our ancestors?
I'll just jump and say something real quick. I guess well, when it comes to radicalism and when it comes to bringing change, I guess this might be very simple. It might be oversimplifying this answer right here, but through my research, the only way that change has been made on a macro level has been radicalism. Now, in most cases, it wasn't Black radicalism, but give me liberty or give me death, by founding fathers of America. I mean, what's more radical than that? If I'm not free, I'd rather die. And you know what? As much as I disagree with most things in this country, about 95% of it, I understand what he was saying. Pretty much. And when you look, from a Black point of view, when you look at the Haitian Revolution, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. When you get a group of people to come together and just literally say, we're willing to lay our life down to make sure that our life is better or the lives of our children are better, then change will come. Now, we also know, for those who know, that our brothers and sisters in Haiti were punished for beating France. But I will say that there have been multiple times where we have come together and we were able to not only be smart, we were also, people were fearful because they had that thought like, man, if I mess with them, I might not survive this. So it's two sides of the it comes full circle. You know what I'm saying? That's why, like, mostly I would say it's like health. You need your health. Mental and physical health is important. Youth development is important. Self-defense is important. Economics is important, and education is important. Those things together, through a Black radical lens, will bring the radical changes that we want and that we deserve. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there real quick. You go ahead, Sister Johnson.
So, how has the past shaped our movements now? And are we more radical or less radical? So I feel like we are way more radical now than we were back then. I feel like back then it was all peace, love, and harmony. And, even if we look at the civil rights movement, right? During the civil rights movement, the reason why when they would protest, they would dress up was because they wanted to appeal and appease, right, to the whole professionalism thing, right? If I look a certain way, how can you look down on me, right? I feel like the radical movement now, we don't care about none of that. We don't care about any of that. I feel like our movement now is definitely more inclusive because past movements have been man-centered, right? Have dealt with heterosexism, right? So, queer people, Black women were either at the backhand or not in it at all. So I definitely feel like we are definitely more inclusive. I feel like we are definitely more radical. I feel like we're not playing no games this time. I feel like, I'm not gonna say in terms of like the whole violence and non-violence, because I'm not gonna get too much into that, but I do feel like, when it comes to being attacked by police, I feel like people are more so willing to, fight back a little bit, not get, try not to get, beat up by police or, things like that. I just feel like the movements in the past were focused on trying to appease to our oppressors. And I don't mean that in a negative way, right? Because the civil rights movement was powerful and we did a lot. But there's a difference from what I see now and how we are now and what we're willing to put up with, what we're not willing to put up with versus back then. Even in speaking to people, my elders, even speaking to people of older generations, talking to them about what we're doing now and how we're doing it, there's a difference there. And so I just feel like, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like we are definitely more radical. I feel like we are definitely more inclusive. I feel like we are definitely calling more people out. And I definitely feel like we are just not taking no crap. So I think the past really showed us what worked and what didn't work, if that makes sense. like us dressing up in suits and ties when we march doesn't necessarily work. They're still gonna tear gas us regardless. Because I remember being tear gas this summer. They're still gonna chase you regardless. You know what I mean? Not being inclusive does not work, right? That does not work. So now we know that. So I just feel like the past showed us what works, what doesn't work, the work we still need to do, and just how our attitudes have just changed over time. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, I just wanted to just throw and make sure that we understand it. You know, that in the civil rights movement, there definitely were two sides. You know, definitely. I think people clearly the more popularized side was the one that was a little more inclusive and more about integration. But also during that movement, like I mentioned earlier, we had the Deacons for Defense, and there's multiple reports of even Martin Luther King, and we know he was about nonviolence, but he had a bodyguard, and he also had armed protection. It was brothers like, you know, from the Deacons of Defense that had that sort of what's the word? They were just okay. Let me just bring it back. I just want to say I just don't want to erase that side of the civil rights movement that were very much for the violence part. Like, you know, Robert F. Williams, you know, the NAACP has never been known to be a militant organization, but due to what was going down in his city in North Carolina, he had no choice. And then he became a very much, you know, Black international figure. So I just want to just make sure that we highlight that. You know, I could say that I don't think we're as radical now because we are so integrated. That is an argument I've made before. But it doesn't diminish what we're doing in our generation. I just do think that things are a bit different because, you know, you hear stories of elders that will say, yeah, the Klan drove to my house with guns and then my grandfather, he just started shooting at him. Not saying we won't do that now. I just haven't seen it. Not saying it's not possible. I just haven't seen it. And, you know, clearly there's more to all this than violence. But I just want to reiterate, there has never been a complete overhaul of any government or any kind of social regime without some sort of violence. But then after
Right.
Yeah, so just want to throw that out there. Sorry.
No, you're correct. So everything you're saying is factual. So when I speak of the civil rights movement, of course, generalizing it goes back to the education that we had, right? What are we taught in school? Nonviolence, you know, it was, you know, wearing suits and ties, appealing to the oppressor. That's what we were taught in school about the civil rights movement. So I think it's important to keep in mind that not everyone knows the information that you know. You know what I mean? So when we speak about the civil rights movement, it's important to speak to what we were taught. And so I think you saying what you just said was super important. And I guess what I was saying is that from what we were taught about this, and this goes to show it's important to do your own research, right? It's important to unlearn the lies that we have been taught. But most people, unfortunately, have not done that yet. And so when we talk about the civil rights movement, there's like general knowledge of what it was, something that was nonviolent. It was something where they, you know, dressed up and tried to look their Sunday best to appease to the oppressor, and that didn't work. And so, yeah, that's what I was just trying to say. But I appreciate you.
That's what this is about, okay? Conversation. So going more into that, Gerald, you kind of brought this up. So do you all think that in order to make progress, you have to be radical? Can progress be made without being radical? And yes or no, and then also define what progress is to you.
Well, for me, no, there is no progress without radicalism. Like I said, we could give numerous examples, not just Black. This could be any culture, no matter what race you are. When things were changed, it was not, for the most part, when a complete overhaul, as we're talking about what a revolution or a revolt or rebellion is, when there was a complete overhaul of governments, there was no conservatism with that, none at all. You know, if we, how do we say, I mean, it's hard to really say radicalism in America is the perfect answer because a lot of our radical movements have just been suppressed and just destroyed. The numerous examples, us organization, Black Panthers, the New Black Brotherhood, you have the New Black Panther Party, I'm sorry, the African Brotherhood, the New Black Panther Party, so on and so forth. I mean, this movie just came out about Fred Hampton, you know his story. It is a formula, you know, that I believe could work, but, you know, it's also that thing in the back of my head that was like, man, our freedom fighters, we praise them for attempting to liberate, but it never really happened. So their goal was to eventually spark a consciousness that would eventually lead to the waves on waves on waves of radicalism to bring change. I'll just give one example. We have Hannibal. He was a man when he fought against Rome. His story was, you know, he had war elephants and he took them through the cold and up in the mountains, and he went through the mountains and he came on the other side. I think he had about 20,000 strong after almost a year of walking through the cold. You know, but he was able to get numerous tribes, white. Well, race wasn't as big of a factor back then. This is more about the Roman Empire versus everybody else. But it was just waves. It was like it went from Hannibal. Then it had multiple waves after he passed away. It was multiple waves of radicalism, different tribes, Genghis Khan, you name it, that just continuously came, and then eventually Rome fell. You know, so maybe that's the comparable here. You know, we started off with Garvey, that didn't work out. Then we had Black Panther Party, that didn't work out. Then we had Khalid Muhammad, a new Black Panther Party, and we also had the NOI, that didn't work out. Now, I guess if you want to throw BLM, I wouldn't personally throw BLM in the same names as the UNIA and the Black Panther Party and the, you know, African Blood Brotherhood, and I wouldn't throw them in there, but it's another wave. It's just different. So my optimism is, you know, it's in comparison to the Roman Empire. It's like after waves of years of people with radical changes just continuously knocking it and breaking it down from the foundation, it may fall. Will I be here to see it? Maybe. If not, then hopefully by the time it's my time to go, I'm sparking something. That's why I love being in education. I'm sparking the mind to want to continuously, you know, push the radical agenda. So all in all, yes, radicalism wants change. Conservatism wants comfortability.
I am on the same page with you, Mr. Huggins, about yeah. I feel like radicalism does work, but does it complete the job fully? Maybe not. Do we? I feel like for me, and I don't think I'll be alive when this does happen, but I think that there needs to be a complete revolution. Like everybody on the same page, we gonna all do this at the same time. Like I feel like breaking down the foundation that you were talking about, Mr. Huggins, I agree with that so much, because it's like, if we can get to that point where we do that, then I truly do feel like we'll be set. Will we get there soon? Probably not. Right? I'm probably not going to be alive for that. For me, I think there needs to be complete revolution, and I do feel like we do need to break it down at the foundational level. But yeah, I agree with Mr. Mr. Huggins. I did it again. I agree fully with what you're saying. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Gerald, were you about to say something else?
Oh no, I know, I'm fine.
Okay. So at this point, both of you have brought up Black Lives Matter. So what are your thoughts on it?
Sister Johnson, you mind going first this time?
So, of course, I support the Black Lives Matter movement. Would I throw the Black Lives Matter movement in the same category as Black Panther Party? No. I know you mentioned that earlier about not putting them in the same category. Would I put them in the same category too? The answer is no. I think with the Black Lives Matter movement, with myself included, is that we have people who see it different ways. You have people who want the complete revolution, the whole let's just take up arms and take things over. And then you do have people who are like, let's not do that, right? Let's talk it out and work it out. And for me personally, I'm somewhere in between, right? And I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement has brought attention to Black lives. However, we have had our faults. Do I feel like it has brought enough attention to Black women? No. Do I feel like it has brought enough attention to Black trans women? Hell no. And do I feel like it's brought attention to Black queer women in general? Absolutely not. I do feel like the Black Lives Matter movement has also become something that has been, I don't know if I should use this word. Is this being recorded? Yeah. So I just feel like the Black Lives Matter movement, y'all now listen now. I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement has also been something that a lot of non-Black people has come into. You catch my drift with that, right? Which has caused the dismantle a little bit of the movement from what we could become. Okay. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I feel like how it was when it first started, because when the Black Lives Matter movement was first started, right? I feel like it was so much more powerful, but I feel like over the years, people have been joining the movement who don't really understand the movement, who are not really for Black lives like they say they are, and have really just changed it into a man movement, basically. So that's how I feel about that.
All right. All right. So I have had very interesting encounters with the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm going to be very, very honest here. Even when I hear Black Lives Matter, it doesn't make me, I don't feel it. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't really, when you listen to like a certain speech, like when I heard Bullet or the Bullet by Khalid Muhammad or Ballad of the Bullet by Malcolm X, and you just listen to it, and you just like, it makes you, ooh, I don't feel that with Black Lives Matter. I feel like we're at the point now where it was no vetting process, Black Panthers had vetting. You had a book list, you had to read, we had to know that you were down. Now it's like, here's a shirt, okay, here's a couple of dollars, cool, come march, good to go, and the vetting is very important because now you have, like here in New York, I mean, apparently there's like a BLM New York City, then there's a BLM Brooklyn, then there's a BLM Bed-Stuy, which is in Brooklyn. So it's like they have so many different chapters that are not on the same page. Like they're probably like 15 different ideologies within one chapter. Not saying people have to agree on everything, but y'all gotta have at least your ideology down, down and intact. And for me personally, I don't feel supported by BLM just from when I researched the page. The page itself didn't mention me, Now, don't get me wrong. I know historically, yes, our Black organizations have been very, very much so patriarchal. I am not going to deny that. I even had to humble myself to really look at it like, damn Black Panthers, damn NOI, damn. But I was willing to learn that, not let it fester, not let it, it didn't taint the organization. So I did my best to not let what I just read on the website, even though it's still there, and how I see how some members act taint exactly how I feel about BLM. So I was like, okay, let me try and work with them. So I did. I will tell you a quick story. I was actually telling my father this story the other day. During the summer, people took over 1PP. If you don't know, it's One Police Plaza in New York City, right off the Brooklyn Bridge. People were camping out, so we got a call. Me and a few brothers got a call, said a lot of Black women being harassed by the homeless or whatever that was, that were at the site. So we was like, okay, cool. So 8 of us rolled up there. We said, okay, we're just gonna just do some security. I have a security background, do some bodyguard work, executive protection work. So I was like, okay, here, we're gonna do this, that. So we had our, we had our walkie-talkies, everything, good to go. And we just did, pretty much did covert security for the Black women that were organizing it. I'm not gonna name the guy. He came, real big guy, poke his chest out, walking, what I'm saying? He's like the head of one of the chapters out here. And he had because I have a security background, I noticed what someone that looks like they have a vest on, a vest or a plate carrier, you name it. So we were just talking, and I'm just like, something doesn't seem right. The way he was talking just didn't, I just got a weird vibe from him. So I just, jokingly, I was just like, ha, ha, ha. And I just, tapped him in the chest, just to see, because something about the vest didn't feel right to me. And my hand went through the vest. So all of that just meant to me was, this is performative for you. Like you wanted to put on the facade that you are really willing to be out here with me on that type of level. Now for me, once I saw that, I told my boys, I'm like, yo, we're out of here. Because this is too performative for me. It's just too many extra outside entities that are involved with that movement. And I just don't think they have Black liberation on their mind. I mean, I can assure you there's Black Lives Matter chapters that are probably less than 50% Black and probably ran by people that are not Black. And I feel like that's a problem. And that's also why I've called out the Divine Nine, because, well, it's becoming more and more, you see people are just accepting anybody, for organizations that were created as Black safe havens, Black safe spaces. That's no longer. And you always have to be a little bit weary of organizations that are for Black liberation, but are letting any and everybody in the organization without any type of vetting, without any type of, hey, listen, if you want to help Black people out, cool. But that doesn't mean you have to join the organization to be an ally. It is okay to help. That does not mean that I don't like you. It doesn't mean I don't like you. I just say you just can't be a part of this organization because this organization is Black and we're for Black people. Now, you need to check your allies. If your allies have a problem with you saying that, you might want to let that person go, because that's going to be the person that's going to bring your organization down. And I've seen it. And that don't just go for non-Black. That goes for Black people too. Vet people. Vet them. My organization, we vet. We have a book list. Beautiful book list. Got 20 books on the list. Read it. You got a month to read it. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm rambling now, but it's essentially, I just think Black Lives Matter is just too popular. Like everybody says it, hey, I donated to Black Lives Matter. Okay, you donated $1 million to Black Lives Matter, where? Who got the money? What are we doing? Why didn't we buy the block back yet? Like, you tell me you got, hundreds of millions of dollars and Black people still struggling? What's going on? So it's fair questions. And I'm not knocking the people that are really in Black Lives Matter that have a thought pattern like mine, because I know there are some, and I know they're probably stressed out, but you aligned yourself with an organization that has a lot of question marks, from financials, from politics. I mean, we saw how they've been acting ever since Biden got elected. It's been really sad to see. And I'm not going to go too much in depth with that, but I'll just say, let's just get back to vetting. BLM, y'all can, I don't say don't, I'm not gonna tell y'all don't support them. I'm just saying be careful. That's all I'm gonna say. And I'll leave it at that.
So let me just say really quick that, you know, the movement was started with good intentions. So it's important for us to remember that. It was started with good intentions. It was started to create awareness about Black lives, and it did that. It did that, right? So I just want to say that first. So, you know, I do think that, because even this summer, I was shouting Black Lives Matter during marches, right? I do feel like for a lot of people, I feel like the BLM movement does spark a little bit of fire in them, but it could be, you know, but like I said, we are all on different levels in terms of what we know about the movement, right? How we understand the movement. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. So the movement was started with good intentions, and it did do good work, right? I agree with the popular thing because we had the social media campaigns about the whole All Lives Matter, right? When Black Lives Matter came out, it was wait, All Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. And then we had the Blue Lives Matter. And then we had the Flamingo Lives Matter. I don't know what that was, but I remember seeing it everywhere. Like Pink Flamingo Lives Matters. Like I don't get it. And then we had Asian Lives Matter. So I do believe that it became popular. In some ways, it became popular in a bad way, right? And in some other ways, I do feel like the BLM movement inspired others to speak up for their, you know, for their race, for their people, right? For their culture. So there's good and bad. Long story short, there's good and bad in the movement. Should we have a vetting process? That's a good question. I think that's a really good question. I'm not going to answer that on here, but you know, the movement, there's good and bad in the movement, but the movement has done some good, and the movement has inspired others to stick up for their cultures and their people. So, yeah.
Oh, before we move on, I just want to shout out Darren Seals. He was a real one, and his name gets forgotten a lot. So shout out to Darren Seals.
Thank y'all for that. So we will have a question and answer session with everyone in the audience at the end, but I will ask this question because I think it's on par for what we're talking about. Do you all think, can radicalism exist with the current leadership and conditions of the Black community?
It's going to be hard to exist because, you know, radicalism is not, it's not sexy. It's not comfortable. It's very in your face. Like, it's very, I'm calling you out about the things that I see that you're doing wrong. It's not very inclusive. Like, you listen to a lot of Black radicals, they talk about separatism. They talk about building a whole new nation just for Black folks, Black people. You know, does that really align with conservative Black, you know, politics or neoliberalism? Probably not. So it's really about, do you support Black radical ideology? Do you support, hey sister, we need to go train. We need to show you how to throw your hands. We need to show you how to clean a gun and shoot it. Are you willing to show your 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old how to do the same thing? Because guess what? The oppressor, they children are getting trained. When I go to the gun range, that's all you see. Father taking his 10-year-old boy in the gun range, 12-year-old boy in the gun range. While Black people are over here arguing about things that are important, but they're micro, oppressors are continuously finding new ways to make sure that we don't move a step from where we're at. So, yes, radicalism could work. It's just that people have to be okay with being uncomfortable. People have to be okay with hearing things that, like, including me. I had to learn that, yeah, Gerald, you are wrong. You are wrong. And I had to eat that and just be like, okay, well, make me better. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't shun anybody. I give you every opportunity to make it right. You know what I'm saying? When everything was going down this summer, I said, okay, before I formed my organization, which was June 4th, 2020, anything that happened before that, your slate is clean with me. Let's get to work. But everything you do after this, I am judging you on. And that goes for me too. So radicalism will work. It could work. But the same amount of money and resources and love and admiration we give into organizations like BLM, and we give to these politicians who have continuously showed us that they don't give a you know what about us, and we give that same energy to these Black grassroots organizations that are radical and try to bring radical changes, then we can see something happen. But until we start supporting our radical brothers and sisters, you know what I'm saying? Like you know, like I just want to throw this out here. Like people say, listen to Black women. I agree, but I want people to understand we have to listen to Black women that speak about radicalism too. You know what I'm saying? You don't really hear about people propping up the sisters that are radical and militant. You know what I'm saying? They deserve to have a voice too. So all I'm saying is, people say this term, keep the same energy. The same energy you give to BLM. If you give them BLM 150, break off them Black radicals $152. If that makes you feel better, I would rather just give it all to, you know, the Black grassroots organizations, or personally someone that you care about that may be within BLM that you know is not associated fully with the organization as a whole. But support these Black grassroots organizations, support these local politicians that you know have your interests at heart, just like the Panthers did when there was a guy running for mayor. They was like, here, brother, we're gonna have your back, but this is what you gotta do. Boom, 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 boom. These are our demands. You cool with me? That's radical. So I do think radicalism could work. Just support us. We're here. Divine Action. I know a bunch of, we got Buy Black. We have Spread Love. We have the Kwame Ture Legacy Foundation. There's a bunch of us out here. Support us, because we need help. You know how it is to run an organization. It is not easy. It costs money to help people. So you need to start somewhere. So just to throw that out there. So radicalism could work. Just support us. Thank you.
I think the difficulty when we discuss radicalism is that people view radicalism in different ways. And so understanding that, right, your radicalism could be, like you said, gun range, knowing how to fight, all that stuff. Whereas someone else's radicalism could be something completely different from that. We can have a set definition for radicalism, right? But people can still choose to determine what radicalism means to them. And so I think there's a like a tug of war with that when we talk about our current, you know, leaders and will radicalism work, but are we talking about our radicalism, right? Or the radicalism that they're thinking about. So I think that's the difficulty in terms of when we have discussions about radicalism, is like everyone views radicalism in different ways. And so I just feel like that's just a dilemma. We don't have, you know, I feel like not everybody has the same definition of radicalism. Not everybody views radicalism as going to the gun range, right? Should they? I'm not gonna answer that. I'm just gonna leave it up to y'all, right? But not everyone views it that way. And I think that's the difficulty. I think that's where we have the divide, is that we have different definitions of what radicalism means. So yeah, it's my little 2 cents.
Well, let me just jump in on that. Yeah, I'm big on self-defense, you know, because this is why I do MMA, kickboxing, all types of stuff, you know, that's what I'm big on. However, you could be radical in health. I know, Sister Johnson, I know you know the numbers when it comes to Black women and how they just can't survive, have a baby. So we need radical doctors, Black radical doctors. That would help. Mental health. We need some Black radical psychologists. You know, what else we got? Education. We need Black radical educators. Like everybody has, it doesn't have to be one way. Like I know, I forgot who said it. He was like, yes, Black people are not a monolith, but we're monolithically oppressed or something like that, which makes very much sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we're not the same, but guess what? We're all oppressed. You know what I'm saying? Like no matter what we may have different ideologies, like me, Dante, Chaston, like we may have all different ideologies. But guess what? The oppressive powers that be, don't care. So I'm not asking for us to be 100% on code. All I'm asking for is whatever you do, in whatever way of life, you are a painter, be a revolutionary painter. If you are, I don't know, if you do IT, if you get to a point where you can hire 15 Black folks in 1 year, do it. That's radical. Because now you're changing the dynamic of the company. You know, I saw someone put finances. Listen, there's a market out here that white people have been using to generate generational wealth for years. I found about my dad put me onto the stock market when I was young, but I wasn't listening. Sorry, Pops. But now, you know, last year, you can't tell me putting in $1,000 and being able to make 10 isn't radical, because guess what? That's the same system these white folks been using for years. Now we can use it. And you saw what happened when we figured it out. You saw what happened a couple of weeks ago when we figured it out, and the hedge fund guys, it was like, oh no, they making too much money. That's radical. Holding the line when it came to those stocks, when they were shorting it, and then you just like, oh man, I might lose my money, and then it shoots right back up. That's radical. That was a revolution. I mean, it sounds crazy, but yo, that was really a revolution. That was a battle. And you know what? The hedge fund guys think they won. Okay. Keep letting people just sit at home and figure out how to make more money. That's another way to be radical. So I don't want it to just make it seem like, granted, Khalid Muhammad was my favorite because he was never caught off guard. He was one of the smartest men to ever walk the face of the earth, and he will also put his hands up and defend himself. That is ideal for me. That might not be ideal for everybody. So I just want everybody to just think, okay, you don't have to be radical, doesn't mean fighting all the time. But guess what? Whatever way of life you have, the betterment of Black people should be somewhere in that job description. It might not be written on paper, but at least in your mind, you're thinking it. Like, okay, how am I gonna help a Black person out this week or this year or today? You know what I'm saying? Or just walking down the street, you see a little Black kid. Just talk to him like, what's up? What's up, son? How you doing, my sister? You never know, that could change their life. Because our kids need it. I'm in school, so I see it. These kids need a hug. Like, who would have thought a hug could be radical? These kids are hurting. You know what I'm saying? So just think of it like that. Once again, I know I talk a lot. So I'm gonna just stop. But yeah.
Right. Another thing that I'm going to say about radicalism that to me can make it, that can cause it to fully work as well, is holding your other radical members accountable for their actions, right? And that is something that we don't really talk about a lot within community, is holding people accountable within our own radicalness. I know that's a word, but you know, like holding each other accountable within that. Being able to call each other out, being accepting of criticism, constructive criticism, right? Because I feel like when we get to a place where those of us who are radical can really hold each other accountable and listen, then I think that we can get a lot further. And I think that it could work with our current leaders. But we need to talk about accountability as well, because accountability is usually left out of the conversation when we're talking about things like this. So accountability is important, just in general, when it comes to radicalism. But yeah.
Thank you all for that. So does anyone need a break? Just asking, or y'all want to keep going?
I'm fine. Good.
Okay, we're gonna keep on going then. So you brought up the slogan, listen to Black women. And so I want to know you all's perspective on the current political environment for Black women, especially with slogans like listen to Black women and Black women will save us.
I don't like that slogan, Black women will save us. They have enough on their plate. You know, I'm always very weary when like all of a sudden all these random, like, you know, you go on Twitter and all of a sudden you see all these random, like, you know, random celebrities, white guys, Asian people, all different groups is saying Black women have saved us. From what? Excuse me. Life still kind of sucks for the majority of Black people out here. So exactly what do it? And then it's like putting that extra burden. And then it's like, and then it leaves Black women susceptible to a lot of blame too. So it's like, I don't like it. And I despise it so much. I sometimes I had to, it got so bad, I had to mute. I never thought I would mute the word black woman before. I had to mute it for a week because I'm like, yo, y'all really, like, don't get me wrong. I was in Georgia when Stacey was running. I love Stacey. Don't get me wrong. I love Stacey. Like, but even with that, it's like, okay, but she didn't save the world. She did what she was supposed to do. I mean, she lost to Kemp because, I'm not gonna get into Kemp, but she lost to Kemp. But end of the day, Stacey, like you saw, she's an organizer. And you saw what she was able to do in Georgia. And I hope they treat her this, I hope they give her flowers. I will say that about Stacey. Gonna make that very clear. But listen, I'm never putting that burden on Black women. I always, like, even when it comes to my organization, like the head of my organization, they're Black women. And I told them, like, listen, if you feel like you got too much on your plate, let me know. And they do the same for me. I actually said, my girlfriend's on the call, Rachel, she's part of my organization. She's like, what you need me to do? I'm like, all right, baby. Here, I need you to write this up for me. I need a grant. And she's like, all right. You know, I'm never putting that burden on Black women. Like, no. So Black women are not here to save, they're not here to save me, so they damn sure not here to save y'all, okay? They're here to work, we're here to work together because we trying to better ourselves, but I'm not gonna put that burden on them. No, that's not happening. And like I said, we're listening to Black women. I think when it comes to like, when people, well, no, you know what? We have a question later for that. So I'm not going, no, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna go that far, but continue. Go ahead, Sister Johnson, my bad.
Well, I agree with most of what you said, but you said something about like, Black women didn't save us from yada, yada, yada. So let's not ignore the fact, however, that Black women have definitely throughout history stepped up and stepped out and showed out for everybody, especially when it comes, even if you look at something simple as voting. So I disagree with that part. Black women have saved America once or twice, and you know, but the way that we view saving, of course, is different. I feel like it is more emotional labor that is placed on top of us. I feel like we are seen as someone who will come to the rescue, and there have been times where we have came to the rescue. We have. But like you said, right? If something was to go wrong, the blame will be put on us. I feel like it is more emotional labor. I feel like Black women are not, we are not given the luxury of rest. But we are not given rest. It's like we always have to step up and show out, or we always feel like we have to do this, we have to do that. And so it's just too much emotional labor. We have to provide labor for our families. We have to provide labor for our partners. And on top of that, we have to provide labor for our society. And then we also have to go to work. And so I just feel like it has become something that is popular. Same thing with the BLM movement, right? Something that has become popular, something that has become trendy, right? There's t-shirts that say, listen to Black women. There's t-shirts that say Black women will save us. And it just has caused burden after burden after burden on Black women. And I think that it's pretty sad how there's this misconception that Black women will save us, but yet no one comes to our rescue when we need saving. Who's there? No one comes to our rescue when we need saving. And I just feel like it has been something that has just caused a burden on top of a burden on top of a burden on top of a burden. And you know what sucks the most is that when people say that, they think that they're saying something great, right? Listen to Black women. Black women will save us. They think that they're really like giving us a compliment. And it's like, I don't want to. I want to go to sleep. Can I go to sleep? Or give me some money. How about you give me some money? Right? Because I got my mortgage due. You feel me? And it's just like, like I said, there has been times where Black women have saved people throughout history. So we're not going to take that away from Black women. But however, we shouldn't have to do that. We should not be the ones that have to do that. And it sucks that when we do the saving, no one's there to save us when we need to be saved. Not even Black men at times. Yeah, I'm gonna call it out. So, you know, it's a problem. It's a problem. Black women should be allowed the luxury of rest. Black women should be allowed the luxury of being saved, but we don't get that. We have to be the ones to save others. So
So with that being said, what do you think that we, as in the Black community, can do to better advocate for Black women in our community, so that Black women know that the community has our backs in the community sense and in the professional setting? What can be done?
So I'm gonna say this really, really quick, and then I'm gonna let Mr. Huggins say something. I feel like when it comes to Black women in our society, how can we better support them? I feel like everyone needs to fully understand what patriarchy means. When we think of patriarchy, we think of, our mind jumps to white men, right? But we fail to realize how patriarchy influences every aspect of our life. Same thing with capitalism. Capitalism influences every aspect of our life. However, when we're talking about sex and race and things like that, Black women, y'all need to understand what patriarchy means, right? When it comes to Black women in our society, you need to understand the impact that patriarchy has concerning our society, and not just with Black women, but just women in general. And it frustrates me sometimes when I say that, and it's like, no, it should be this, it should be that. But when you have a true understanding of patriarchy concerning, how people are treated in our society, things become a lot clearer. And so for me, that's one of the things that I would like to see. I would like to see people really take the time and do their research on patriarchy, what it means, the history of it, how it plays into sexism, right? How it plays into everyday aspects of our lives. I really would like to see that. And I feel like once we come to an understanding of what patriarchy is, we can better support Black women. But yeah, that's my little 2 cents for right now.
All right. Well, I'll speak for myself, because I try not to generalize or try to make everybody, how do I say? I try not to project how I do things on other people. I may advocate, but I don't try to project it. So let me just put that out there. But what I will say, I want to get better with listening to with Black women's grievances. For one, that's something I've worked on a lot, and I also urge Black women to don't use the general catchy slogans. No, I really want to know what's going on. Like, protect Black women. Okay, tell me how. Tell me exactly what you need for me to do. So I had, like I said, when a sister was getting, when they were being harassed at 1PP, she called us, she said, hey, I don't feel safe. I need some protection while I'm out here doing my work. And if the first thing, it was a doubt in my mind, we were going to roll out there. We rolled out there like 1 a.m. You know what I'm saying? I know it's very micro, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like, okay, a sister could depend on some brothers. They were all brothers, all brothers that went out there to defend her, to protect her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think we just have to move away from the blanket catchy slogans. So we really need to break it down. Like, what exactly do you need from Black men? Because I hear the word accountability, which is very true. Like, hold my homies accountable. Like, there are some men out here now. This is not me, but I'm sure there are men out here that know that their homeboys are really foul and doing very foul things to Black women. They let it slide, or they don't say anything. So when I ask Black women, hey, how would you like for me to hold this man accountable? And I usually don't get an answer of exactly what they want me to do. They just like talk to him. I'm like, let me be honest with you. A lot of with ego, and you talk about patriarchy, with ego and patriarchy, a lot of men don't want to hear someone telling them what to do. You know what I'm saying? So I'm asking you, like, hey, talking to some people, if you want to just be very, very blunt right now, if you know there's a man out here sexually abusing and harming women, talking to them will not work. I'm going to be very, very honest with you. Those people, well, there's a very special place for people that act like that. And me, I'll come from the mindset of, like, if you are harming Black women, like the guy in Harlem where he offered the sister to buy her drinks, and then she said no, and he beat her up and bit her on the face, he doesn't need to, no, we're radical. He doesn't need to be here anymore. There's no reviving that. There's no saving a guy that will treat a Black woman like that. Bite her in the face. That's animals. That's what animals. I watch Animal Planet like every other day. That's what they do. You don't treat your people like that. So for me, I'm saying I need very specific requests and demands. So like I'll ask them, what does protection look like to you? What does accountability look like to you? What does advocating for you look like to you? I want to know exactly what you think I should do. And then let me do it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I look at it, help me better assist. So for me, I was like, hey, let me give Black women some concealed carry permits. Why not? Most of them lived in Georgia, Texas, Virginia, very cheap, not over 100, probably like the most you pay is $100 to get a concealed carry. And then also we got them a sponsor to help them go to the range, teach them how to shoot, and also help them pick out their first gun. And we also got some discounts with training and stuff like that. But that's how I look at it. Now, some other people may look at protecting Black women a different way. I personally, that's the best way I know. And it's worked out for me. And the women around me say I'm doing a good job. And I would always want to get better. But at the end of the day, I need to know, like directly, I need to know, like write it down, make it very clear. What do I need to do? Because I don't read minds and I'm not trying to. I'm not a psychic. Tell me what you need me to do to help better protect, advocate, and listen to you. So, yeah.
Okay, so I low-key drew a blank, but I remember now. So I'm trying to figure out how to word this. What you're saying is great. Great. And I get the whole the whole you're saying you're trying to project and things like that. I get it. What you're saying is great, right? You come to me, you ask me, what do you need? I tell you, you do it. Perfect. That's not always realistic. The reason why I say this, to bring it back to the whole patriarchy thing, the reason why I say that patriarchy is something that really needs to be taught and learned and then unlearned is because it's not just about a conversation with me and you. Like if I came to you and it was like, can I have a gun? And you gave me a gun, that's great, to better protect myself. But the protection of Black women is a structural thing. The protection of the unprotection, of Black women is a structural thing. The protection of Black women is a systemic thing. It's not just us having a conversation, I'm telling you what I need, and then it's done. It doesn't always work like that. And this is where I get frustrated, because we have to understand that. We have to understand how things work on a micro level, but also how things work on a macro level. And so for me, on a macro level, I need people to educate themselves on what patriarchy is, how it negatively affects Black women, right? And then unlearn it. On a micro level, what you're saying could work perfectly, but that doesn't necessarily work on a macro level. And so I appreciate you, saying what you're saying. Is it realistic for everybody? No. And so this is why, to me, having education on the history of how Black women are treated, having education on the history of how we live in a society that is catered towards men and how they view women and how they treat women, is also something that is important. While it's great that I can call you brother and ask you for a gun and you give it to me, or ask you for whatever and you give it to me, that's great. Is that enough? No, it's not enough. So, and it could be two things happening at once. Maybe we need, right, more of you, of course, but we also need more education as well. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
I agree. I don't disagree. Like I said, it all comes full circle. That's why I always talk about education, youth development, health, self-defense, economics. It all comes full circle. All that.
Also,
yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it all comes full circle. So I mean, yeah, I understand the micro and the macro level. I guess for me, I'm more about.
But also, I'm sorry. One more thing.
No,
but also understand that, and because you mentioned this earlier a little bit ago, you said if you ask a woman, you know, how do you want me to hold this person accountable? And they say, oh, just talk to them. And you say, you said something like, no, what is it that you want me to say specifically? You also have to understand how that can possibly be another labor for Black women, because we have to tell y'all how to tell each other to correct each other, right? If I say, you know, I want you to talk to him, right? And then you say to me, okay, well, what exactly do you want me to say? You have women out here who just want you to just talk to them and tell them what they're doing is wrong. It can be another emotional labor, unpaid labor, for us to explain why you're doing something wrong, why you should talk to your homeboy, why your homeboy is doing something wrong. That's also something that is exhausting. And this is why we need education about patriarchy, so that when I say to you, hold your homeboy accountable, you're not going to say to me, what do you want me to say? Because you already know what you need to say, because you've been educated on the topic. So now I don't got to spend an hour telling you what you got to say, because you already know what you got to say. So just keep that in mind as well. So my little 2 cents, I'm done.
Okay, nah, like I said, I don't disagree. I'm just saying that, you know, I'm speaking from as a man. So, you know, who knows a man better than another man? I'm saying some of these, like the man that bit a sister in the face, there's no talking to him.
Right, but I agree. Okay, with that situation, I agree. We're here with that. But I'm talking about in general. It's not just, I'm not talking about instances of just pure violence. I'm talking about just in general. So with the whole violence situation, we're on the same page when it comes to that.
So I guess another example. I guess it's all case by case and different sequences that occur that, you know, you could, protection of Black women look different. However, I like I said, I really, when I ask that, it's really about, you know, Lily, like, what would you rather, because I can handle it my way and it might not be exactly how you want, you know what I'm saying? Because I could just do what I feel is right and then just be okay with it. I wouldn't even ask you, what should I do? I could just be like, well, he did this. You told me he did this. Okay, boom, I handled it. You wouldn't even know what happened. Next time you see him, he waves at you, said hi, he said, yes, ma'am, all that. You don't know what I did. So, I mean, there are different ways to, you know, handle how we protect people. It could be like, you know, if I'm in the workplace and I have the ability to get you hired or get you moved up, I do it. I mean, clearly, you know, you would hope that the sister is qualified to do it, but even if she's not, you make it work. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I said, like, you could be radical with just hiring your people. You know what I'm saying? I had that discussion with someone about, you know, protection of Black women. And one of the brothers, he mentioned, like, you know, and I know the way he said it was weird, but he was basically saying protection of Black women could look like if, like, for instance, my girlfriend, she's on here. If she says she's about to go to a certain part of a certain neighborhood that I know historically is not safe, and I say, babe, you should not go there. And if you do go there, I'm coming with you. Do not go by yourself. And what the brother was saying is, if a sister doesn't listen and something happens, it will break his heart, because he's like, oh, he tried to help. You know, he wanted to help. He did his best to help. You know what I'm saying? And I just think that, you know, also when it comes to protecting Black women, sisters need to listen sometimes to brothers' advice when it comes to their safety, if that is a thing. You know what I'm saying? I just think it's a two-way street. We all need to listen to one another. You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to listen. Like I said, I don't have all the answers. I defer conversations all the time to people that may have better answers, but I just know what works. Like you said, the education piece is important, but sometimes you got to put the action into it. If there are brothers that are acting a certain way that is just detrimental to the progress of our people, and even if there's sisters that's detrimental to the progress of our people, they need to be dealt with. How we do it, I mean, hey, as long as it gets done, I'm okay with it. So, you know, that's my how I would handle my protection of sisters personally, not projecting.
Essentially, what I'm saying is we have to get to the root of the problem. I want us to start at the root of the problem so that it doesn't develop into a tree. what you're saying, you stopping one man or one whoever from harming a Black woman is not enough. And so for us to change the structural part and the systemic part, we have to start at the root, right? So what I'm saying is we need to start at the root of the problem so that we don't have to do things like that in the future. Like, for example, the story of, what's the story of the thing with the river? Like baby, like it's like something like a, it was a story I heard, this might sound a little weird, but it was a story I heard about how a baby was floating down the river and there was a person who jumped in to save the baby. Then there was another baby floating down the river. And so another person jumped in to save the baby. And then there was one person who ran to the top of the river and said, I'm going to find the source of the problem so that we don't have to keep jumping in the river and saving babies. That's essentially what I'm saying. When we get to the source of the problem, right, which is I said before, educating ourselves on patriarchy and what that means, and then unlearning it, eventually we won't have to do what you're suggesting, right? Which I don't see no problem with it. We're on the same page when it comes to that. But what I'm saying is we have to stop it at the root. That's what I'm saying. We have to stop it at the root so that it doesn't develop into a tree. Because you stopping one person is not enough. Somebody else stopping one person is not enough. Once we get to the root of it, educate ourselves and then unlearn it and then teach our children to unlearn it. And then our children's children teach our children to, like, once we continue to unlearn generation after generation after generation, we won't have that issue where you will have to go out and do what you got to do. Does that make sense? That's essentially what I'm saying.
So before you answer, I just want to say that this is great. I got a couple more questions I want to get through, and I also really want to have a Q&A with the audience. So since you did ask the question, Sarah Gerald, I will let you respond, but can it,
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I was like, I agree. I feel like you have one half and I have the other, and we put those halves together, then things will work. It's cool with me.
Boom. That's how you do it. So we're gonna move forward thinking about justice and just how does the Black community as a whole move forward. So justice has often been described as love in action. How do you define justice? And what role does it play in higher education, in the community, and in your personal life?
So my view of justice might be a little different than others. I actually wrote a paper on this when I was in college. We had to define what justice means. And for me, I compared it to having just laws, right? Like, let's take civil rights laws, for example, right? And I basically was saying that when we think of justice, we think of laws, right? But if you do not have the mindset behind it, those laws don't mean anything, right? We can have laws that are, it's illegal to discriminate. But if you don't feel that, if you don't think that, if you're not unlearning that, it doesn't matter. So to me, justice is really having the mindset of being all the anti-isms, right? The anti-phobias, right? The anti-oppression. It's about being really, truly working on it every single day, mentally doing it, right? Being anti-racist or anti-transphobic or anti-homophobic, right? Anti-capitalism. Because you can have laws around racism, you can have laws around sexism, but if you don't believe in that, it doesn't matter. We have laws all the time that's supposed to protect people and they don't. So that's just my little 2 cents for right now. Yeah.
I'll make this very short. After Lincoln, well, first he attempted to ship us out of the country. Then after he, freed, emancipated, you use whatever you want to call it. He just wanted to cripple the South's economy. After he did what he did, America made it their duty to like, hey, we freed y'all, but we're gonna make your life a living hell. So they created every law. I actually sat down and went through the Constitution one day. Oh my God. It is like, it's suffocating. It's like I said, it's crippling. It's a disease. Like justice justice for us won't come with the laws that are in place. It's damn near impossible. Like, you're a slave, you go back to jail. Like, hey, I mean, and I just saw during the summer, there was like cases of, like, they were saying, like, there's a law that women in jail could get or in custody could get raped because they waive their rights, or some craziness like that. I was like, there's a law for that or something. It was some craziness I saw. It's like all these different laws that we don't know, like, that are just so oppressive. And it's just like, we can never really get fair justice on, well, like KRS-One would say, there's no justice on stolen land. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's real. Like, it needs to be a complete overhaul of the government, because real justice for Black people will never come with the laws that are set in place, that have been set in place for hundreds of years for us. It's almost impossible. Like I said, it's suffocating. It's hard to breathe here sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But for a lot of us, this is all we know. So we could all say, you know, like, don't get me wrong, what Garvey said makes a ton of sense. You know, let's go back. You know what I'm saying? But even with that, everybody does not have a Pan-African thought. You know, not everybody thinks of it like, hey, we'll just welcome all of our brothers and sisters from across the diaspora to come back home. Everybody does not feel that way. However, there's really only one truth that you cannot, I'll repeat one more time. I said I'll make this short. So let me just end it right here. With the laws in place, it is going to be very hard. It's damn near impossible to get real justice with the laws in place. Now, maybe for people that believe in voting, in a perfect world, we could vote in all the most radical leaders ever, and then we could, get some overhaul that way. But outside of that, justice is only going to come once we get a whole new system. We have to dismantle it and then restructure it. You know what I'm saying? Some people believe in socialism. I'm one of those people. So yeah, overhaul, then we'll get real justice in this country.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, if it doesn't matter if there's just laws to protect people, but if the mindset is not behind it, it's not going to matter, right? There's laws when it comes to people getting hired. You can't discriminate based off race, based off sex, based off gender, but it's still done. It doesn't, if your mindset is not behind being just, right? These just laws are not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
So both of you are kind of touching on it, but to explicitly state, what challenges or opportunities do you foresee in regards to the pursuit of justice, equity, and equality for Black people, specifically with the current administration, so Biden-Harris, and Congress?
Like a lot of people would joke, like my homeboy would jokingly say, people will enjoy this administration because it's diet racism. It's not the racism it's the racism that they're comfortable with. I despise the last guy that was up in there, you know what I'm saying? But I will give him one thing. He made people come together, you know what I'm saying? And to an extent, like the racism was so, well, for those who know, that racism has always been there. I mean, it's always been there, but he just made it, he's like, here, let me show you what America's really like. Open his chest. And here's America for you. And a lot of people like, oh, hell no. No, we don't want this. So they came together and they did everything in their power. And they were willing to accept anything better than him. But that's a problem. So now we're back to square one, where it's like, okay, whew, we good. We got him out. So hey man, you listen, just don't be as bad as him and we're gonna be okay. But that's not a good way to go about, this is our life. These are our livelihood. Like, people are out here starving. People are out here, like New York City, this is the most violence we've seen in New York City since 2006. You know what I'm saying? People are starving, people are hungry, people want this administration to, people need help, So, I had the conversations with my father, I had the conversations with people that I trust. They say, give the administration a shot. So, I'm giving a shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, listen, you ain't been in a month yet. So I will give you a shot. Let's see what you have. But the criticism will be there, I'm sure. Because, and they're politicians. They're not freedom fighters. They're not liberators. They want the country to be intact. they want those oppressive laws to still, for the most part, be intact, because, that's how they made their careers, off the same oppressive laws that have been intact for years. So, I mean, there's hope, because like I said, I'm gonna support my people. If they say this administration was what's gonna make our situation better, I'll give them a shot. Cool. But trust and believe, the time's gonna come when we're gonna have to be like, okay, we done did this again. And we're gonna have to try something different. So, I'm gonna be optimistic, because I'm trying to be more optimistic. And I'll give them a year. Let's see what happens. And we'll go from there. And that's my piece on the current administration.
I don't want to sound like pessimist, but it's just, like I said before, it doesn't matter. Like if we are not having the mindset of where we are really trying to liberate people, right? People who have been oppressed, it doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter what laws we pass. If you do not have the mindset to really liberate people, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I agree. Trump, he did bring people together. He sure did. He did a great job at it. The first time he got elected, we underestimated the vote, because there was a hidden vote. Let's be clear, the hidden vote was serious. And that's one of the reasons he won, but he was able to bring people together. And that just shows, again, the mindset of our country. So it doesn't necessarily matter who we elect if we do not have the mindset in place to fully liberate the oppressed. Once again, you can pass any type of law. It ain't gonna matter if your thought process is not there. It's not going to matter. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So it sounds like both of you all are saying that basically there's going to be more challenges than opportunities at this current moment. Yes. So what should be as in the Black community, what should be our focus and our agenda moving forward with this current administration?
Start from the micro level and work your way up. So like I said earlier, go in your neighborhood, go on Instagram, go on Twitter, whatever you use, you just search engines. Find some organizations that align with the betterment, the liberation, whatever the word you want to use, that is going to help improve Black folks' situation. Start, like for me, I'm starting where I'm at. I'm in Brooklyn. So I'm going to start in New York City. And if you live in, Dayton, Ohio, start in Dayton, Ohio. It doesn't matter. You have to start giving the funds, giving the energy, giving your support to people and organizations that want to liberate, not get comfortable. Like, we don't want we shouldn't want equality. We built this joint. You know what I'm saying? We built it up. So asking for equality is kind of, it's not really liberating. We want to be liberated. You know what I'm saying? So I say start from there. That's what I always tell people. Start from there. Find your organization, organize, get into politics if you can on a local level, as in, like I said, what the Black Panthers did. Find you a candidate, tell them, hey, we gonna get you in, but this is what you got to do for us. But we all know once they get in the office, they can switch up, but it's worth a shot. You know what I'm saying? Not doing it at all, then you have no say so. And and then but I also said, just voting alone is not gonna help. You have to organize. And like I said, you got to train, you got to develop the youth, go to the detention centers and go help those kids. But when they transition out, they just throw them out to dry. They don't know how to, go back into society, help people, So yeah, that's just start on the local level, work your way up. You never know. I mean, you might spark the mind. That's really what it boils down to, sparking the mind sometimes.
I definitely agree. I feel like when it comes to the Black community, and I know that this is, of course, easier said than done, like anything else, we all just need to be on the same accord, right? Could you imagine if the Black community started, all of us, every single last one of us, started at the micro level? That would be amazing. That would be amazing. I feel like Black people, we just need to be on the same page. On the same page. So I agree with what you're saying, Mr. Huggins, and I also, of course, would throw in the education factor, which is already, I'm sure, included in that. So I just feel like we just need to be on the same accord. I think starting at the micro level is great with that, but we just all have to be on the same page. But even if we're not, of course, you know, start within your own community. So yeah, agreed.
So now I'm going to open this up to the audience. If you have any questions, you can put in the chat, or you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question. So while we're getting all that straight, I will ask, saying that the Black community, this is just my personal question, not coming from the subcommittee on behalf of Chasten, saying that we all need to be on the same level, right? That is so much easily said than done. So how would you get the Black community on the same page? And for those who don't want to be on the same page, what do you do with them?
So I'm not going to answer the what would you do with them part. I'll let whoever else wants to answer that.
Okay, maybe not what do you do with them,
but
but what do you do?
it starts with what Mr. Huggins really said. It starts with your local organizations, right? But it can also start within your household, right? It can start with your family. It can start with, if you have children, it can start with your children. It can start with your significant other, right? So it can start within your household, within your family, whatever the case may be, what that looks like. But it can also start with organizations, local organizations as well. Now, what to do with people who are on the outside of that, I can't answer that, but that's where for me it would start, is within the household at first, and then you work your way up from that.
I think pretty much I'm gonna simplify it. Just instill the ideology that is very simple ideology. It's literally 2 words: Black first. If we put Black first, that's a very simple concept to get around. Like even in my organization, I don't care, I don't care your gender. I don't care what you identify. I don't care what you identify as. Are you Black? If you are Black first, you have a home here. If you want Black liberation, you have a home here. It doesn't matter, because whatever you do outside, whatever you do, that doesn't affect me. But I know that when it comes down to it, if you say you're Black first, regardless of what community you're a part of or your industry, if you are Black first, we can work with that. But if you're not Black first, it's going to be hard to work with, because I always know you're going to always have some sort of close proximity to the people that we're pretty much trying to, work against to make sure that our lives are in a better place. So Black first ideology is key. You know what I'm saying? I could go as far to say Black first, Black only. That's radical, because I know you talk to Khalid Muhammad, he'll say that all day. And he also said, and to answer your question about what to do with the with the other people, or the people that don't align or are not trying to be on code. I think Khalid Muhammad was talking about the Nat Turner rebellion. And he said there was one problem he had with Nat Turner. He said Nat Turner didn't kill any, well, he said he didn't kill any niggas. That's what he said. Because we all know the reason that Nat Turner was caught, because a Black person that was not on code ratted him out, and he was eventually caught, and then he was turned into a coin purse, and the University of Virginia had his skull sitting in their science department for however long. But that's outside the point. So yeah, sometimes he said we'll love our people, we'll nurture our people, we'll teach our people. I think he said, but if they don't come around, some of them might have to go on the ground. And that's what Khalid Muhammad said. So that could be an answer for what you do with it. Don't have to be a literal in the ground, but you could just be like, all right, we're not fooling with you anymore. Cool. So that's my answer to the second question. So.
And I think other things play into, and this is my personal opinion, I think other things play into us not advancing as well. Like, of course, dismantling white supremacy within our community, organized religion, what that looks like within our community, how that plays a role, how we view LGBTQ people within our community, how that plays a role. I think a lot of those things also play into why we're not where we could be, right? So it's not just, white people, but it's a lot of other things too that we've been taught since birth, that if we were to dismantle them, I think that we as a community can get a lot further.
Thank y'all for that. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay. Go
My
ahead.
name is Robert Viney. I'm a criminology and criminal justice major from Hampton, Virginia. I attend Virginia University, and I just wanted a little bit of transparency on what Miss Sarah was saying. Kind of like when she was more so, I felt like she was kind of generalizing the Black man, saying that she felt as if that what Mr. Gerald, he had said that he was actually working to for protection of like certain women, and also working to get Black women some concealed carry license. But when she had said that was not enough, but then came back with kind of less transparent ideologies of what we should do, it just kind of made me feel like she was just kind of asking empty commands. And it was just like, to a sense, when he had went back and asked the question, what specifically could we do? And the question was just never answered.
So as I mentioned, hey Robert, so as I mentioned earlier, on educating ourselves about patriarchy, that was the answer for me that I had said. So, I agree with Mr. Huggins on him asking a woman, what does she need and how that can be helpful. But the reason why I say it's not enough is because when we look at our history between men and women in our society, there's no coincidence when it comes to sexual violence, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, that the perpetrator is almost always a man. And so when I talk about patriarchy, and when I talk about how that affects Black women, when I talk about once we learn fully how patriarchy plays a role in our everyday life, right, including our race, including our gender, how we identify, we can then start to dismantle it at the root. So where we don't have to, right, go to a woman and say, how can I better protect you? Oh, I just want you to talk to him. Or what exactly do you want me to say? Like we would get to a point where we wouldn't have to do that. So that's what I was trying to say. I'm not sure in terms of transparency. I'm not sure what.
Because it's just
what
like,
else did you need? Yeah.
Because in the perspective of things, and you saying like you shouldn't have to like clarify to what that meaning is, it just allows a person to have to react on their perspective on what they personally feel like you would want. But then it's like the next problem probably would come from you saying that's not what you wanted after a person acts on what they needed to do. But I definitely understand what you're saying.
Right. So I was saying in terms of like, I'm not saying that I wouldn't say what I need. I'm saying that I shouldn't have to say what I need when it comes to the trials and tribulations that Black women go through. So when you educate yourself, and when you educate yourself on how we live in a man-centered society and how that affects Black women, all women, of course, and then how it really affects Black women and how it affects Black trans women and Black queer women, you would get to an understanding of when I say something like, he made me feel uncomfortable, when he says such and such. Oh, what do you want me to say? I want you to just talk to him. Okay, well, what exactly do you want me to? You would get to a point where you would understand what you would need to say to this person so that it doesn't happen again. I'm not saying that I wouldn't say what I would need to, I'm not saying that I wouldn't say what I would want him to say to a certain man. What I'm saying is once we start at the root of the problem, the hope would be that I wouldn't have to say it because it wouldn't be happening in the first place. So I'm trying to answer your question. I hope I answered your question. Always let me know if I didn't.
It's to an extent, and absolutely, I don't want to be the person here to like taking up all the question and answer time. I just feel like it's like some things are left off to thought, like trying to make it to the root. It seems like a more questionable, like where's the root? But to say that we're in a man, like, yes, definitely. there are some high value men out here, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's a accurate assumption saying that we live in a man-driven world when everybody, I feel like everybody has an equal opportunity.
So we have a question in the chat, and I'm going to read that. But if you all are okay, I'm going to go to, well, not even if you're all okay, I'm just going to go to this next question. But maybe you all can continue this conversation elsewhere if y'all are okay with, exchanging communication and things. So this next question, it comes from the chat. What have been some of your greatest concerns or fears in holding a radical ideology, if any? And this is for both of you.
Man. All right, well, I've been fired for like 3 jobs for trying to be radical. But I'm glad I went through that because I don't fear it anymore because I'm here. I made it. You know what I mean? Now, granted, I'm not like the people that I idolize, like Malcolm X and Khalid Muhammad. They were full. That was their job. They were full time. They were speakers. They were actors full time. They were paid. That was what they do. Me personally, I like being an educator. So I like being in the classroom. So that's why I want to get paid to do. But like when I worked at ESPN during a very rough year, which was 2016, between Kaepernick kneeling and the Trump administration, and then the Dallas shooting, and then I want to say it was Philando Castile in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. It was a bunch of stuff going on in 2016. I just so happened to be the fresh out of Virginia Union University radical brother. Went to Bristol, Connecticut. They ain't never seen nobody like me before. I used to dress like this to work. It was like, oh no, sir. So I mean, do I regret it? No, because I am who I am. Because I know if I did not act how I am, I would hate myself. And I'd be damned if I hate myself to make you feel better. That will never happen. So, and for all those who are radical thinkers, listen, there are a lot of jobs out there. If you lose one, you get another one. You have to go to sleep saying, I love myself. If you go to sleep and you don't love yourself, you need to switch up what you're doing. Something to think about.
So to piggyback off what Mr. Huggins said about the whole job situation, I've never really had a fear of speaking my mind because I did have that mindset that if I lost a job, I can just get another one. I've never been fired from a job. Even when I did speak my mind, I don't. But there have been times where like people have told me to stop, and people have said things like, "Oh, if you say that, you might get in trouble." And I would say, "Okay." And if y'all fire me, I'll get another job. I have the mindset where I work anywhere. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Retail, the restaurant industry, it doesn't matter. I always have money in my pocket. Whether it's $1, $100, $1,000, I'll get another job. It's okay. And me having that mind, and I think I get that from my dad. My dad's kind of the same way. And so me having that mindset of, if you're gonna fire me, I'll just find another job, has caused me to not really be fearful. I will say this past 2020, I did have a situation where I almost did lose my job, my career job, right? That I worked hard for, because I, long story short, called out every single person at my job and basically said they were racist. It was, and I received a lot of backlash for it. And there was a turning point. And the turning point was you can either stop and apologize or keep going and possibly lose your job. And so me being me, I kept going. I told them that I was not apologizing for anything because I have publicly called out my job. So, I told them that I was not apologizing for anything. I said what I said, period. What ended up happening was I didn't get fired, yay. But what ended up happening was we ended up creating groups within our workplace that are addressing the systemic issues within my job. So what I did, and I kind of downplay what I did sometimes. I don't really talk about it. My boss kind of talks about it more than I do, when she tries to like instill courage in me or whatever, but or let me know that I'm a hard worker. But basically what I did was I really did start the conversation at my job about the systemic racism right? Interest phobia and homophobia, all of that. We talked about all of that and how that was really in the workplace and how we needed to do something about it. If I would have given up, if I would have apologized, if I would have been like, oh, I should never did that, we probably wouldn't be where we're at right now today within my organization. So it's really about the mindset, right? If you have that mindset where you can find another job, Rainbow hiring, Family Dollar, Lowe's, Walmart, Target, like Burger King, Taco Bell, it don't matter. They always hiring, right? It doesn't matter. Once you realize that, you don't get comfortable. You don't get comfortable. And one thing that I realized in the many jobs I have had is that people get comfortable. And there was a time where I would be upset. Like, why are you comfortable? Why y'all not saying anything? Because trust me, in my previous job, like, I would be the only one who would say something. I would be the only one speaking up, the only one, and I would get frustrated that I was the only one. And then it dawned on me, and this is why I think it's really important to understand others, is that people get comfortable because no one wants to lose their livelihood. No one wants to face homelessness, right? No one wants to face poverty. Being in poverty is not fun. It's very traumatic, right? No one wants to go back to that. So what do people do? They get comfortable. They get complacent. They don't say anything, right? And then when you are someone who speaks up, they tell you to do what? Be quiet. Don't say nothing. Because you know what? Everybody got to eat at the end of the day. And so I came to an understanding that even if I am the only person speaking up, I understand that I still have to speak up because I understand that other people are complacent and I can't blame them for that. I can't blame you for not wanting to lose your livelihood. I can't blame you for not wanting to be homeless, for not wanting to be hungry, for having to eat the same thing for weeks at a time because that's the only thing you can afford. I can't blame you for that. So that's the way I am, aside from, of course, being raised by my dad and him instilling this in me, and me feeling like there will always be a job. But that's also another reason why I am the way that I am, because I know that some people are not going to speak up because they don't want to lose their livelihood. And I understand that. So I'll be the one to keep speaking up. Because I'm not afraid, so I don't care. I'm working anywhere. Y'all gonna see me somewhere. Hey, y'all, what you need? How can I take your order? It doesn't matter. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have time for one more question. So it's a hypothetical scenario. We're in the future and we have reached liberation. What does this future look like for you all? And what structures are present?
I'm on an island by myself with a mojito. That's what it looks like for me. And I'm sleeping all day, getting my rest in. But no, I'm kidding. I'll let Mr. Huggins.
Man, it's kind of bad that I have all these answers for the current, but I guess I never really thought about what my perfect liberated America would look like. There was this show called Man in a High Castle, and it's like a hypothetical when like Germany won World War II, and they split America in half. They gave Japan the West, and they gave Germany the East. And I was just looking at like, I'm just thinking like, so Black people liberated, what would we do with everybody else? Now, ideally in a perfect world, yeah, we got to make sure we give back the lands to, our indigenous brothers and sisters, whatever. Well, let me take the brothers and sisters back because some of them enslaved us, but I would say our indigenous people, we got to make sure they get their land back. And then we can have discussions about how that land will be dispersed amongst us, because we definitely built up this country as well. But, that's bad. You know what? I don't really have an answer, but I will say you have sparked me to really think about what, a liberated world will look like. I know socialism will be a thing because capitalism is not the answer. And Black capitalism damn sure ain't the answer. So socialism would be the answer. I guess I will structure that to like what Thomas Sankara was doing, what he did. Like the people helped build back up, that country after their revolution. I could probably round like Kwame Nkrumah, like him, Thomas Sankara. I think that I would probably form it based off of how they formed their new nations. You know what? whoever asked that question, I want to talk to. Give me like a week, and I will actually reach out to you and give you that answer, because I'm not gonna fake the funk. I don't have the answer to that question right. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
For me, and I don't know if this is like a fairy tale type of thing, but every time I think about the future, not necessarily for me, because I know I'm not going to be alive, but for my children or my grandchildren or my great grandchildren, I would just want them to be free. I don't think of having structure, because you said, what would the structure look like? I don't think about having structure when I think about a future that's of liberation. I don't think about having to worry about walking outside and getting judged because of the color of my skin, or possibly being sexually assaulted, or having to go to work. Okay, make a check, got to put this check to pay bills that I don't want to pay, right? When I think of the future, I just think of just my children being happy and free, not having to worry about a damn thing. And I feel like that's probably a fairy tale. That probably really is a fairy tale, but it's just, or even when I think about if my children were to be trans, they're not going to have to worry about being killed because they're trans. If my children happen to be gay, they're not going to worry about having to be judged because they're gay. I think of a future where people can just be free and live their life and not have to worry about a damn thing. I don't think about structure when I think about the future. I've never thought about structure. That hasn't even crossed my mind. I've never even thought about what the structure will look like, because I will always hope there is no structure. So that would be my future, a future of people just being free and just drinking mojitos. That's it.
Thank you, Trey. I think that was a great question to end on. Thank you to Gerald and Sarah for being able to come talk to us, being able and willing to be a part of this program.
It was a pleasure. I always say, I feel humbled to just think that someone wants to hear what I have to say. So I just try to make sure I do my due diligence to make sure that I'm not, failing you, because you reached out to me and you feel like I had some substance. So I truly thank you. This means a lot to me, more than you know.
Yes, I really do appreciate this opportunity, honestly. Thank y'all.
We truly appreciate you all, joining us this evening. And I just wanted to take a moment, it's out of protocol, but I want to recognize Mr. Huggins Sr. We really do appreciate you joining the discussion and supporting your son. It really means a lot. Thank you for joining us.
Love you, Pops.
In case anybody missed it, in the chat, this entire presentation has actually been recorded and will be available, since we figured, some people maybe dropped out due to other obligations or weren't able to make it for whatever reason. So that way, anybody, if you know somebody that you think may really enjoy this, we'll have it available, most likely through a link off the OMSA website, but we'll also be sending it out to everyone that registered as well. And I, again, want to say thank you to both of our guests and to my subcommittee that, we all had a lot of ideas that went into this program, and it was really, really good to really enjoy this whole over 2 hours that seemed to fly by with everyone here.
Also, just want to, give a huge shout out to Sister Chaston Smith. She did an excellent job of organizing this for us. She did a ton of work to make this happen. She contacted and got our speakers, and she did a great job. So we just want to definitely give her credit where credit is due. Now I do want to ask the speakers, do you want to share with us any of your contact information or anything? You want to drop it in the chat, or if you want to just speak on it or things like that? I want to give you that opportunity as well.
Can everybody drop their contact information in the chat for me, please?
Yes, I will drop my contact information. I'll just give you a little highlight. I do have a nonprofit. We just actually got approved for our 501c3 because people like them tax breaks. I understand. So we just got approved for our 501c3. It's Divine Action Incorporated, and our Instagram is divine_action. You can look us up. We'll take any type of donation. We also have some things going on. So we have representatives in Richmond. So if you are in Richmond, reach out. Anything we can do to assist you with any type of project you have, we'll be gladly, help. We'll love to do so. So I will put that information in the chat now and go from there. Go ahead.
So I have 2 resources for those people, and this is just like general resources for people who are living in the state of Virginia or in the Richmond area. So I used to work for the Virginia Sexual Domestic Violence Action Alliance. So we serve all communities, including LGBTQ communities as well. And so I'd be sure to drop that in the chat box too. We do have a hotline. We help with shelter, helping people just get a safe place to stay. We also have a program called the Comprehensive Harm Reduction Program, and this one is more so catered to the Richmond area for people who are using substances. There is a misconception that, and I guess you can say I'm generalizing a little bit again, but there's a slight misconception that people who use are just white, and they're not. There are plenty of people of color who use, right? And so what we do, we hand out clean needles, we hand out Narcan, we hand out snort kits because we just want people to use safer. And Narcan is actually a drug that can bring you back from an overdose. So I'll be sure to leave that in the chat box. So those are just 2 resources, okay?
I know I'm blowing the chat box up. I apologize, but I'm just gonna put my email and I will leave y'all alone. All right, we're good to go. Okay, I'm good now. Thank you so much.
I put something by accident in the chat box. Sorry, y'all. 1 second. Yeah, I put my email in the chat box so anyone can email me if anyone needs help with any type of situation, or if anyone knows anybody who needs any clean needles or other use or cleaner use supplies as well.
Thank y'all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Have a blessed one.
Stay safe. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I'll be sending out the feedback form to everyone that signed up for this. And if anybody has any questions that they send me later on that I need to direct towards the guests, thank you all again. And have a great rest of the night. Stay safe.
Chastain, can you stay on for a quick second? Is that okay? Okay. Thanks, y'all. Nice meeting y'all.
Yeah, thanks again. We really appreciate you speaking and participating in our group. We really enjoyed the discussion. I was hoping that Mr. Gerald would have stayed on too, so we could virtually thank you too. It was an awesome discussion. We need more of this. So I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks again, Ms. Johnson, for being here. I'm full, writing everything down, and just it was very enlightening and